Erev Shabbat Shalom Rabotai. We're continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Berachot. We're up to Perek Zayin Mishnah Bet. The Mishnah now is going to discuss two different topics. Topic number one is going to be who cannot join into a zimun, into a group of men to make a zimun. Topic number two is going to discuss how much bread has to be eaten in order to become obligated in reciting Bekat Mazon and reciting zimun. The Mishnah writes, Nashim va'avadim uktanim and mizamnin alehem. Women, avadim kenanim, Kenani slaves, and children cannot join a group of men to make a zimun. Meaning, if you have two men, you cannot add in a woman, a evet kenani, or a child to form the three that is required for zimun. And Farshim explain why. Women cannot join a zimun because it's immodest to make a woman part of a group of men eating when they're needed. It's not a proper thing. It's plitzut, it's immodesty. Same thing by avadim kenanim. Since they are suspected in immorality, even regarding men, they cannot join a group of men to make a zimun because it's recognizable that they're needed. It's immodest. Children cannot join a zimun. The Mishnah is going to clarify them. The Farshim say, children, when we say children, we mean a child who doesn't know who he's blessing to. If you have a child that's 9, 10, or he's old enough to understand, even at the age of 5, 6, who he's blessing to, he could join in a zimun. When we say child, we mean a child who doesn't know who he's blessing to. The Mefarshim go on to explain, when we say women cannot make a zimun, it's when they're joining men. However, if you have 3 women that ate on their own, or 3 slave avadim kenanim that ate on their own, they could join a zimun. They can make their own zimun. They're not obligated, they have permission to. However, important to point out, the poskim write, if you have a group of men, 3 men that ate and now have to say zimun, a woman is not allowed to break away if she ate with them. Like we'll see later on in the Mishnayot, once you make a zimun, you cannot break away. This woman becomes obligated in reciting zimun. Why? Because now since she's not needed in the group, it doesn't look like plitzut so much because it's not as recognizable. Therefore, that's the first part of the Mishnah. Women, Kenani slaves, and children cannot join a group of men to form a zimun if they are required. If they're not required, they become obligated because it's not recognizable. But maybe not the child, but the avadim and ktanim. However, if they're required, they cannot join into the zimun. The second part of the Mishnah discusses how much you have to eat. Rabbi Meir says ad kazait. How much do you have to eat to be required in zimun? Kazait, because Rabbi Meir holds the obligation to eat, the obligation to recite Bekat Mazon comes from kazait, starting a kazait. Therefore, if you ate a kazait, you have to say Bekat Mazon. You have to say Bekat Mazon, and therefore you have to be part of the zimun. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Ad kabetza, you have to eat until a kabetza and on in order to be part of a zimun. The halacha is like Rabbi Meir. Once you eat a kazait, you already become obligated in zimun. And just for clarification, a kazait is 27 grams and a kabetza is 54 grams. The Gemara Masechet Berachot on page 49b discusses exactly how Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda got to these numbers of kazait and kabetza. That's for the Gemara over there. But the Mishnah says, Rabbi Meir says kazait in order to be obligated in zimun. Rabbi Yehuda says kabetza. The Rav writes halacha is like Rabbi Meir. Mishnah Gimel goes on to explain the text, the nusach of the zimun. Mishnah says ketzad mizamnin. How do you recite the zimun? Bishlosha, when you have 3 people that ate together, Omer Nevarech. The leader says, let us bless. Nevarech Shechad Mishro, because all 3 are needed. Bishlosha Bahu, if you have 3 men plus the leader, Omer Bachu, he says Bachu. Why? Because the Rav writes, since there's 3 regardless of him, he could tell them to bless. Bachu, you bless. Ba'asara Omer Nevarech Lelokenu. Once you have 10, you already start adding Hashem's name because you have a minyan. Less than 10, you never say Lelokenu. You say Nevarech Shechalnu Mishalo. Once you hit 10, you add Hashem's name, Nevarech Lelokenu Shechalnu Mishalo. Ba'asarabahu, if you have 10 plus him, so again, he's not required, he's not needed to make a group of 10. Therefore, he says, Bachu, you bless. Echad asara ve'echad asara ribo. This is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Whether you have 10, whether you have 100,000, the text will always stay the same. Either Nevarech Shechalnu Mishelo, Nevarech Elokenu Shechalnu Mishelo, Baruchu Shechalnu Mishelo, or Baruchu Elokenu Shechalnu Mishelo. Now, however, Rabbi Yossi Aglili is going to argue on Rabbi Akiva. He's going to say, depending on the amount of people, the text that you recite is going to change. B'mea, when you have 100, you say Nevarech LaHashem Elokenu. B'mea v'hu, if you have 100 plus the leader, Omer, you say Bachu LaHashem Elokenu. Be'elef, when you have 1,000, Omer, you say Nevarech LaHashem Elokenu Elokei Israel. Be'elef v'hu, if you have 1,000 plus the leader, Omer, you say Bachu. Baruch Hu LaHashem Elokeinu Elokei Israel. Beribo Omer, when you have a ribo, you say, Nevarech LaHashem Elokeinu Elokei Israel Elokei Tzbaot Yoshev HaKiruvim Al HaMazon She'achalnu. There's a text that the Rabbi Yossi Glili holds you have to say when you hit a certain amount of people. Beribo vahu, if you have a ribo plus the leader, Omer Baruch Hu LaHashem Elokeinu Elokei Israel Elokei Tzbaot Yoshev HaKiruvim Al HaMazon She'achalnu. Kinyan Shu Mevarech Kach Onim Acharav. Just like the leader repeats, says out, that's how they answer him. Baruch Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Israel Elokei Tzvaot Yoshev HaKiruvim Al HaMazon She'achalnu. Rabbi Yossi Glili Omer Lefi Rov HaKal Hen Mevachin. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Glili, who says, based on the number of people, that's how the text will change. Shneimar, because the pasuk says, B'makelot Baruchu Elohim Hashem Mimekor Yisrael. Makelot is lashon rabim; it's a gathering. Therefore, Rabbi Yossi says every single kahal, every single group has a special way of blessing Hashem, and that's how we set it out in the Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Akiva says, Ma matzinu. Ma matzinu is a certain type of learning. Ma matzinu bebet kineset echad merubim beechad muatim omer baruch hu et Hashem. Just like in a shul, you have whether 10 people, whether 100,000 people, you always say Baruch Hu et Hashem Mevorach. Same thing by Birkat Mazon. If you have whether 10 or 100,000, it's always going to be the same text, and it's not going to change. Rabbi Yishmael says the text of the Chazan in the shul is Baruch Hu et Hashem Mevorach, and the answer Baruch Hashem Mevorach Leolam V'ed, and the Chazan repeats. The Halakha follows Rabbi Yishmael, and the Halakha likewise follows Rabbi Akiva, that the text will never change no matter if you have 10 or 100,000, and we always say Baruch Hu et Hashem Mevorach in the shul, whether you have 10 and whether you have 100,000. That is today's Mishna Yomi, Rabotai. Everyone should have a Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.